The first thing we need to do is enable the feature, and we can get to that by going to the Display Suite Extras page. I'm going to use Coffee here and type in Extras, and you see here we have Admin Structure DS List Extras. That's where we want to go. And then we want to click Other, and then we want to click Region to Block, and click Save Configuration. You probably noticed that there were several other features there that Display Suite offered. If we click there, you can see something called Page Title Options, which allows us to hide or manually set the page title for the full content view mode. So if we did want to use the layout for Display Suite in the way that we just did to display a sidebar in a Display Suite layout, then if we wanted to line it up with the page title, we could hide it this way and then display it inside of the content area as a field. So that would help us get around the alignment issue. You might want to check some of these other ones out when you have time as well. So now that we have region to block enabled, I'm going to exit out of the overlay here, and I'm going to click Manage Display on the review page. Now, something that's a little odd here is that if we scroll down, we're not going to see any special options for this block to region feature. That's because we can't apply it to the default view mode. We instead need to use the full content view mode. So if we click on Custom Display Settings here, we can select full content here and select Save. Now this bumped us out of the overlay because we submitted a form, but we can go ahead and click Manage Display here to display it again. So when we open up the overlay through the tab, it adds this destination bit at the end of the URL, and we can remove that if we want to retain this overlay when we submit the form. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to remove that and hit Enter to load up the page again. Okay, now we can work through several steps without having to go back to the review page. So now that we've selected full content as one of the view modes that we can work with, we see it as a subtab here, and it's currently selected. And by enabling this, we've actually overridden what we would see on the node page. I'm going to exit out of the overlay just to show you real quick. And you see that down below here, we have our product data, and it's not even using the sidebar view mode anymore. That's because by enabling the full content view mode, we're overriding the default. So we'll need to do a bit of adjusting in order to get this view mode to match up with what we've already done in the default view mode. I'm going to click back a couple of times to get to the overlay again, where we've removed the bit from the URL. And I'm going to toggle between default and full content here. So the order is funness, giftability, weirdness, and body. And if we look at full content, you'd see that we still have that here. And then product reference, if we go back to default again, was in a right region, which no longer exists in this particular view mode. Now, we're not going to use a sidebar this time, but we will use a separate region. And in order to expose separate regions, we're going to have to select a layout down here. Before we do that, let's make sure we're rendering the entity in the right view mode. So right now it's being rendered as full content. Let's change this to sidebar. So I'm going to click the cogwheel and then select sidebar for the view mode. And then I'll click Update. Okay, that should fix that. And now let's select the layout. And we'll choose one column for now. Before we save this, I just wanted to point out this layout for review in full title is just describing that this is the layout for the review content type in full content mode. Some of these words are a bit ambiguous, so I just wanted to clarify that. And let's click Save. So this changed things just a little bit. We have a comments field enabled in the content region. Let's take that away. And then if we scroll down, you'll see we have now a block region section. If we click this, we can add a new region that will then be exposed as a block. Let's call this region Related Product in Sidebar and click Save. Okay, so now we have this additional region here that we can drag over the product reference to. Now this region doesn't have any position in the content itself. So if we saved this, I'm going to scroll down and click Save, and then I'll exit out of the overlay, you'll see that we no longer see the product information. That's because it's basically hidden. It's been converted to a block, but the block hasn't been enabled anywhere. To enable the block, we need to go to Structure, Blocks, and we can do a quick browser search for product, and then we see Related Product in Sidebar here. And we can enable it in Sidebar Second, which is the right sidebar. And then we can click Save Blocks. We can exit out of the block settings here. And now we see our block over here on the side. So a couple things to note. One is that we have some additional content up here at the top that we need to remove, like related product in sidebar, which is the title for the block, which is easy enough to remove. And then product reference, which is a label for this particular field that got turned on when we switched to using display suite for the view mode. We had hidden it earlier in our default view mode, but now we're using a different view mode and we have to disable it again. Another thing to note is that even though we've enabled this block in the sidebar and haven't restricted where it displays at all, it will only display on this page. So if we go back to the home page, for example, it's not there anymore. Display Suite is smart this way. It only shows the block on the page where the content actually displays. I think that's pretty cool. I'm going to hit back in the browser to go back. So also notice that the size that we've chosen for our image style is a little bit too big now that we've added some padding in the sidebar block.